I'm Lily, or lilykate makes on Instagram. I'm a knitwear designer and this is my podcast, so thank you for joining me. It has been a little while since I was last on YouTube. I'm in a new filming location, a new room in the same house. It's all cosy, I have lots of autumn sweaters to share, thought I'd get all nice and, you know, autumnal, and it's boiling hot. So yay for the first week of September being far better weather than we've had all through August, but we're just going to have to go with it. So I'm in the item of clothing that I will melt the least in right now, and I have so much to share that I kind of don't even know where to start. I feel very much out of practice with YouTube. Filmed quite a few times over the last few months and just ended up not quite liking what I'd filmed, or just being like, no, that was rubbish, or I waffled on here, and then it was once I'd filmed and then I left it a while before editing, and you know when you're just like not in the right kind of frame of mind for it. That's been me over the last few months, but I feel, I don't know if it's a new season, even though it's not apparent, or just kind of, you know, general September feels that I'm like, right, come on now, get back in the zone, get the head in the game, and YouTube is one of those places that it's a good place to meet knitters. I watch so many knitting vlogs and podcasts and everything whilst I'm actually knitting, that I feel like, yeah, it's just a good little community, isn't it? You hear so much about people having no attention span for long videos or long articles anymore, and everything being about Instagram and TikTok and like boom 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 fast-paced content. Nobody has any attention span. But I feel like with knitting, we're doing something that our hands are being kept busy. We need something to watch. The hobby and the podcasting kind of thing, you know, it works nicely. So this is my long-winded way of saying I'm excited to be back. I have a lot to share. Dolly over here is wearing one of said items. We've had a shuffle around. I'm in this new corner of the house. And where to even start? I guess I should begin with what I'm wearing, which is my tonight top. I don't think in my last video, I don't think I even started these patterns, and since then have knit a couple of samples, had the whole thing test knit, wrote up the pattern and everything, obviously, published the pattern, people have knit them, so it's been one of my favourite items I've done in a long time actually. I really, really like it. So my original inspiration, actually I was talking about this in my Copenhagen vlog, because I remember I was trying on the half-finished black version of this at the point where it was just some kind of scrappy pieces of fabric and it looked like I was trying a pair of knickers on over my head. So that's where we're at. It now is a proper top that's had lots of wear. This one's slightly warmer. I don't think I could face putting that one on today whilst it is sticky outside. So my inspiration for this one was very much a kind of chic, minimal 90s look, kind of post-divorce Diana sort of a vibe. And it had been kicking around in the back of my head for quite a while, this idea. Sometimes I have like a moment of inspiration, I'm like, right, cast on now, I know what I'm going to make. And sometimes an idea kind of brews, it kind of sits there in the back of my mind stewing away. And for this one I had a really clear image of exactly what I wanted it to look like. It was going to be super minimal, hardly any detail, but more about finishing being done impeccably, if I do say so myself. So I've been using a lot of double knitting this year, and this has double knit around the edges that just makes for a super clean, super neat, minimal edge that you wouldn't notice it, you wouldn't look at it and think, oh yeah, that's got a rib edging or that's got a whatever edging. It just kind of flows really nicely and smoothly and doesn't curl or anything. And one of my favourite techniques with the double knitting that I've used in a couple of patterns this year, some nifty little short rows to make sure that it lies nice and smoothly around the underarm and around other areas where it curves. I've used them on back necks, underarms. It's my little nifty trick that I think kind of makes all the difference, because if there's one thing I have an absolute pet peeve with, it's when edgings flare out. I cannot deal with that. So this felt like a really nice solution to that problem that sometimes occurs, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. So yeah, my tonight top just has 2x2 ribbed edging, little detail down the side that will not show. I don't know why I'm holding this up, it just looks like a black blob, doesn't it? Not 2x2, a little moss stitch, double moss stitch detail down the side, and then 2x2 rib hem. And yeah, black shows absolutely nothing. I'm just throwing it around know, whatever. But I was determined that it was going to be black. I knew it was going to be a nightmare. I knew it was going to be difficult. I knew I wouldn't be able to get it to show up on the photos properly. But I feel like a black turtleneck is such a classic item, and I wear them all the time in winter. Not hand knit versions, I prefer really, really fine gauge machine knit versions for winter. But I thought it would be a good item to have in my wardrobe and that I would wear it lots. And I was not wrong, so hopefully we'll wear this more over autumn. But it's been really nice to see all the different versions that have been made both by the test knitters and people who've knit the patterns since then. This was a second sample that my mum did most of the knitting of this. The top I'm wearing, sorry, just passing myself there. And if I could tell you what the yarn this was, I would, but I can't, because we found it at my nan's house, and I think she bought it at Woolfest in about, I think she came with us in like 2009, 10, something like that. And it had already been wound into cakes, but the label, with no labels attached or anything. So yeah, we just found these two skeins at my nan's house, and she doesn't really use this kind of, she doesn't particularly use 4-ply or hand-dyed anymore, so she had no use for them. And then, just conveniently, I did have a use for them, so here we are. But I don't know what it is. It very much feels just like standard merino nylon sock yarn. But it's 4-ply, hand-dyed obviously, but by whom? Who knows. Cute though. And this one came out a little bit more snug. So usually I do a size 2 for my patterns. A size 2 in my patterns for my personal sample, sorry, which is a 32 to 34 inch bust. And I'd hoped for this one to have a little bit of ease. I didn't want it to be like super skin tight. I thought it felt like it would be a bit more modern if it had a little bit of ease around the bust. And this version does, the black version does. But then this one, knit to that gauge when we swatched it, knit to the gauge of the pattern, I thought the fabric looked a little bit flabby on the 3.25mm needle. So decided to use a 3mm needle instead to make the nicer fabric, knowing that that would make the item a tiny bit smaller. So as it turned out, this sample I would say is a size 1.5, which obviously doesn't exist in the pattern, but you know what I mean. And it's a little bit snugger, but I still like it. And I find it's interesting sometimes using colours that you wouldn't have necessarily chosen. Like, I would never have said I'm a rusty brown or whatever colour you would call this kind of a person. I normally like quite cool or clear toned. I feel like it suits me better. I have quite pink toned skin and blue eyes, so I generally think that suits me better than warm tones. But then, I don't know, I've actually worn this a whole lot more than I expected. It looks really nice with denim, which is always helpful, isn't it, because that's just an easy uniform. But yeah, I would not probably have chosen it off a shelf, and then it turned out it was great for me. So whether that's a lesson to be found in that you should branch out of your comfort zone a little more or not, then who knows. But those are my two tonight tops, which have kind of fit the whole theme that I've had this year of doing more pared back, simpler looking designs. That doesn't necessarily mean they're super simple to knit. It's simple as in it's not covered in cables or anything like that, but there are little details that you have to obviously do carefully to show off to their best. But that's the kind of direction that I feel like it works for me both designing wise. I feel like I'm good at it in terms of actual design skills and for what I want to wear in my wardrobe. Just these kind of pieces that can be dressed up or can be dressed down. There's nothing overtly dressy or fancy about this top, but I can wear it. I could wear it with a slinky skirt and a pair of heels and it'll look quite good. Or I can just wear it with baggy jeans and it also looks good. So that's kind of the direction that I'm going this year. I've had, what do you call it, a brand identity crisis of sorts? I don't know. Maybe kind of the reason why I've gone a bit quiet on YouTube over the last few months, that I feel like I'm really finding my place. I'm figuring out what works for me as a designer, as a knitter, as someone who wants to wear these things, but also someone who's running a business and wants to make things that people will buy and, you know, can actually make it sustainable for me. So been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of trying ideas and then maybe deciding against them, or yeah, just I guess trying to put a lot of thought into everything before I actually cast on, rather than just willy-nilly being like, I want these poopy sleeves. And yeah, I feel very happy that everything I've made this year I have worn lots and lots. And that's not to say that things in previous years I haven't worn, because I do. Everything I make gets worn, but these particular items, I feel like I've just reached them constantly. So I feel like that must be a good sign, you know? If I'm reaching for them a lot, I've enjoyed knitting them. If they're getting worn a lot, I must be doing something right. So in addition to working on new designs over this year, which like I said I've kind of slowed down with, and I've also been working on a few commissions for other publications which I can't share anything of either on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, just working on behind the scenes. And as is often the case, it wasn't just a straightforward process of casting on, knitting the item, being done. On a few of these things that I've been working on in secret, I've had to start them, knit most of them, then realise, nope, that's not going quite in the right direction, rip back, change things, and have to redo them again and again, and spent a lot of knitting time getting really frustrated with something that should have been simple. But anyway, that's just part of how it goes, isn't it? And I couldn't obviously be sharing, this is what I've been working on and this is how it looks. Just got to keep it tucked away for next year, which was kind of annoying, because I was like, I want this out now, I really like it, but hey ho. So in the meantime, whilst I was working on designs for other publications and for next year, my mum actually reknit a few samples, I say reknit, knit additional versions of existing patterns of mine. Because I find it makes such a difference having something in a different colour or a slightly different style. So this is an underlace top, which was one of my designs from 2021, I want to say? Yeah, 2021. And I knit my original version in 2 shades of soft pink cashmere. And it had chunky stripes and then little frilly lace edge bits here. And that original version had waist shaping and was reasonably snug fitting. And then this version, just knit at ever so slightly looser gauge. I think it was on the same needle size, it's just a slightly weightier yarn. The other one was cashmere, so it was very lightweight. This one is a cotton acrylic blend, so it has a little bit more weight to it, a little bit more drape. And we omitted the waist shaping this time around, so it's just a straight down fit. And just doing it in a solid colour, and obviously a bright, rich colour rather than too subtle, neutrally kind of colours. It has a completely different look. And I just think that's it's a really handy way of reinventing an old design, because I'm like, I still love the actual design, I still like the original version, but I know that it's only going to appeal to a certain number of people and only going to work with a certain type of outfit, for example. So without actually changing anything about the design really, other than omitting waist shaping, which is obviously like, doesn't require any thought, I have a completely different feeling item. So, and I think as well it helps to visualise these things. You know, I could say, oh yeah, you could knit this item in bright yellow, but it's not necessarily, you know, it just has a different feel, so it can be difficult to then actually visualise it. So I think it's nice every now and then to do a completely new version. I've got a lovely sample knitter working on a couple of my old cardigans from a few years ago, doing them in completely different yarns. It's quite exciting to revisit an old design, and then it feels like something new and exciting, even when actually calculations wise and, you know, pattern writing and everything, I haven't had to do anything again, so win-win really. Another example is this Take Turns tank that my mum knit this year, again whilst I was working on other samples that I couldn't share. So this is in a 4-ply weight cotton marled yarn that is unfortunately discontinued, because it's really pretty, but you can't get hold of it anymore, the whole brand has been discontinued. And she cast on with the intention of it being a t-shirt. The original pattern is my Feels Right tee. It was going to be a t-shirt, it was going to maybe, I don't think we decided which colour the sleeves were going to be, if they were just going to be in the blue, or if they were going to have a stripe. I think we'd been dithering over that, of which particular colour combination to do. And then I tried it on half complete and thought, quite like it without sleeves actually, why bother? So it became the Feels Right tank, which did require a little bit of rejigging of the pattern, just because you had to pick up ever so slightly differently around the armhole to just finish it with a rib edging rather than the original version, which has sleeves, so obviously you're picking up with the intention of doing something different. So yeah, it required a little bit of tweaking, but nothing much really, and it has, again, a different feel to the original. So I've also worn this one quite a lot over summer. It looks really nice with white jeans. And then Kiliana, who you will know well if you watch my Copenhagen video, my knitting bestie, she knit a version of the Feels Right tank in stripes, and oh my god, I absolutely love it. I need to steal it. Well, I did steal it a little bit while she came over to visit me. It looks so good, pink and red stripes, and as you'll see, I have got a bit of a thing for pink and red. She kind of set me off down that route. So we're now going to have lots of matching items that I'm excited to wear together. We're going to match when we go to Barcelona Knit Festival in November. Me and Kiliana are going, and hopefully, if all schedules work out, Anastasia of Free Your Sheep podcast is also going to join us, and she's got a pink jumper with red stripe, and I've got red with pink stripe, and then Kiliana's got pink and red stripe all over, and we're going to be like cringy, basically. That's what we're going to be. We're going to look like toddlers dressed up matching, and it'd probably be too hot to wear any of them, but the idea's there. And I'm excited. So if anyone else is going to Barcelona Knitting Festival this November, please let me know. I don't really know what to expect. Been to quite a few different yarn festivals and knitty events in the UK. I don't think I've ever been to any outside the UK. We're kind of treating it as a trip to go and meet up and have fun, and we'll go to the yarn festival while we're there. So don't really know much about it, to be honest, what's going on, but I'm excited to go. And of course I will try to vlog it. It'll either be the double act or maybe even a triple act, or there's maybe even a couple of other people joining us, so we'll see. But there will be a video of some sort, and I can't wait. So speaking of red and pink sweaters, here is said sweater. My piping hot sweater, that's a lot of sweaters, isn't it? Which, oh, I love it so much. I'm thrilled with how this one turned out. Again, it took a few attempts to get going at the start, as always, because I used a saddle shoulder, but then with some tweaks to the construction. But I'm just so happy with it. The main detail, of course, being the piping, and then the colourway is called Flame, so piping hot just felt like a cute little play on words there, and that makes me very happy. This is one of my autumn designs. It's currently being tested. I think there are 2 weeks to go on the test knit, and the pattern will be available on the 19th of September. So not too long off now, actually. Quite a few of my testers have finished, and I'll pop some photos of those on the screen now because they are so good. I get excited every time I see them because they just look so cool. Yeah, so as you can see, it's a fairly simple sweater in terms of shape. Just a boxy fit. Has my favourite construction around the armholes that kind of will look like a drop shoulder. It looks like it's creeping down here, but there's actually shaping, so this upper body doesn't kind of creep too far down the arm, but it all still has that nice relaxed fit, similar to how I did my Calm Down cardigan. And then the piping is created with a combination of a few techniques that's actually really simple to knit. I'm afraid the trick to that is going to remain a secret in the pattern, but it's really simple and very, very effective and kind of addictive, I'd like to think. So the main thing that makes me excited about this pattern is just the way that it can look so different in all the different yarns, and the opportunity to have fun with the piping. So some people have done like I have two bright colours. Some people have used fluff for the piping. So I actually had the pleasure of meeting up with Leah, who is one of my test knitters, and also a designer herself, when I was in Wales last week, the week before. I knew she lived in Wales, but I had no idea where. And I'd posted an Instagram story that I was catching the train down to Wales. She asked where I was going, and it turned out that I was visiting the town where she works. So it was like a ooh, small world kind of a moment. So of course we had to meet up for a little knit day. My sweater had to come along. Her almost, was she about half finished at that point? A bit past halfway finished sweater. We met up, we took matching pictures, and and I've gone off on a ramble here, haven't I? My point being, she used 4-ply held with mohair. I think it was 4-ply with mohair, I assume so, for the piping, so it's fuzzy and it like glows. It's so cute. Other test knitters are using maybe neutrals. One lady's doing the main body and the front piping, front and back, sorry, all in cream with mohair, and then just, can't tell, I think it's like dark grey kind of charcoaly colour down the sleeves. So that looks so nice. So obviously you can use different piping there and there. You could use a different colour piping on all 4 of them. I think it would look cool if the whole body was in neutral and then each piping was in a different like neon scrap maybe. Yeah, so you can use scraps for these. If you used a variegated yarn, you know, the type that would normally pool if you worked over regular length rows, because you're only working over the few stitches of the piping, each section, say you had a bit like this, would give you a little mini stripe. So hand-dyed yarn would give you stripy piping. There's just so many possibilities with it that it could look so different, depending which direction you choose to go with it, and yeah, that makes me very happy. And oh, and the cuffs, I like those too. On the body, the piping ends before the rib, so the body ends just with rib all the way around. But on the cuffs, I wanted the piping to run all the way down to the end, and it runs all the way up here, so it's not interrupted from, begins right at the start of the neck, all the way down to the wrist, in one continuous line, and yes, that just brought me a lot of joy. I'm getting warm now, it even just sat on my lap, so I'm gonna have to put that to one side. But yes, piping hot sweater, coming 19th of September, had to think then. Oh, yarn, that's another thing to mention. So I used dye gilpin Laland DK from Tangled Yarn, a shop in Stockport, so not too far from me. And I was actually sent Rachel from Tangled Yarn gave me the swatch that she had originally received of this yarn, because I'd nipped into the shop, I saw it on the side, really liked it, and she just said I could take the swatch. So I was having a real close look at it, and it's very subtle, you probably won't tell from a distance, red and pink marl, but it's slightly different to most marls I've found. So this, for example, this cotton and most marled yarns, this is a 4-ply and it's 2 strands of blue, 2 strands of white, and they're just twisted together. However, on this yarn, it again is 2 strands of pink and 2 strands of red, but instead of being all 4 twisted together, there is a red and a pink twisted together, and then another red and a pink twisted together, and then those 2 strands of 2 are twisted together. And like one, I can't remember which way around, but one was an S twist that then was twisted as a Z twist, and then an S again. Can't remember exactly, but the twists so that they cancel out, and it makes a really nice smooth yarn. And it means that the marl is even more subtle, because you only ever get like 1 strand of it at a time. It just makes for the most light and airy, really nice fabric that's super warm but super soft, and I'm a big fan of it. So not every colour in the Laland DK is a marl like this. I think since I ordered this back in, I don't know when it was, May or something, yeah, May I think, a few new colours have come out that are marled actually. There's definitely a bright yellow, which would look beautiful, but the other colours are just solid, and they are super bright, some of them, which of course is what I wanted here. So I would highly recommend that yarn. Dye Gilpin Laland DK for that one. More recently off my needles is a top that does not have a name. I'm hoping that by the time I put this podcast out, I will have miraculously thought of a name and will be able to put it on the screen right here. As usually happens, I can't think of something, and then I have a light bulb moment after I've already filmed a whole podcast talking about the jumper with no name. So I thought, right Lily, sort of get your thinking cap on, sort yourself out. Nothing's quite stuck yet, nothing quite feels right, so jumper with no name currently. But anyway, I'm very happy with it. I've only finished this in the last couple of days. I used Cardiff Cashmere Classic, which I've used before for my thin air sweater, which is a white cashmere sweater with silk cuffs. And I wanted to make something a little bit more kind of Again, this sort of casual feel but with a little elevated detail seems to be the theme that I'm going for. And if you've followed me on Instagram, YouTube, anywhere for any length of time, you will see I love a tuck detail. It's the main feature on my Abydos sweater and top. I've used it on cuffs of my circumference sweater, used it on my Winkley cardigan around here, definitely in other places as well that I can't even remember. But yeah, I love a tuck. It's a simple thing to create, but it's so neat and adds a bit of structure. So, I knew I wanted this to be a fairly casual, everyday but nice crew neck sweater, and I really like piping details. And I was kind of thinking, where would you have a little bit of structure on a sweater? And then I actually noticed on one of my, was it on my dad's bike jacket? I can't remember whether it was on his or another one that I saw. That on leather jackets you often get stitching, or whether it's actual extra layers of fabric for leather, even for reinforcement. You get these lines kind of here around the shoulder that are further apart here, and then they come in towards the neck. And I was like, oh, I like that idea. Had a bit of a play around with swatching, knew that it would require a lot of short rows, but that is absolutely fine with me because I love a good short row. So yeah, the final item has short rows and piping to sort of create this detail that comes over the shoulder here. It's very, very satisfying to see it take shape. Again, took a few attempts, had a few fails, but once I got going and got past there, it all went fine. So we have the same kind of gently sloped set-in sleeve construction. It's not a set-in, meaning it's fitted, which I think is the general association. But yeah, it's just that really nice, relaxed kind of casual but comfortable fit, where you don't get the excess bulk of fabric under here like happens with a drop shoulder, where the sleeves are created out here and then when you put your arms down it's bulky here. That doesn't happen. So it has the detail on the shoulders and then just a simple ribbed neckband because I thought there was enough going on. The cuffs have a little bit of piping just between the stocking stitch, then piping, then rib, and the sides have my other favourite detail that I have also used multiple times, which is a little pleat just around the waistline, which I think is going to be optional. So my sweater grew quite a lot with blocking and I anticipated this. I always aim for an awkward, slightly kind of cropped, sleeves slightly too short fit pre-blocking, and I gauged it just right that it grew quite a bit after blocking so that then the waistband sits kind of low on the waist and has a little bit of room for the body to kind of bag over but not too much. But anyway, I thought that it would look good if it nipped in a little bit at the waist. Just a little bit, not like tight. But if you were making this a full length version, like properly hip length, then obviously you don't want it to come in at the hip, that would just be weird, so the pleats will then not be included in the longer version, but pleats and tubular edgings and rib and tucks and short rows, makes me very happy. Anyway, so I used Cardiff Cashmere Classic in the shade Zoe for this, and this is kind of a very light DK or sportwear yarn. And obviously I used all one colour throughout, so I wanted this to be like the basic kind of sample standard version, very classic, you know, all of those good things. However, this particular detail, once I started knitting it, I thought, oh, there's quite a lot of mileage in this, there's a lot that you could do. So far I've done a couple of swatches, but I have plans for about 6 more. The starting point. So these are what I've started with. I've used yarns, this is the pink that I used on the piping of my piping hot sweater, so the Lalan DK, which is not quite the right gauge, it is a DK rather than a sport weight, so I went up a needle size just for this swatch. So I'm not necessarily recommending that yarn for this pattern, but I just kind of wanted to show how it looked with mohair just for illustrative purposes, and I had the pink yarn there, so yeah, obviously doing it in a bright colour has a different feel. Doing it with mohair in between, it gives these sections a nice sheer detail and gives the whole top a completely different feel. Like imagine it all in black and then these bits being sheer. They could be sheer but with black mohair, so you could, you know, still have some colour there, or it could be sheer with skin tone lace weight, so it's properly sheer. Oh, there's loads of options with that. I'm going to swatch I think white then with 3 different colours of mohair. I might try it with 2 strands of mohair. Definitely a lot of different things to play with there, and I'll be including notes in the pattern for where you need to change colours and everything. And then for this version, so these are little shoulder swatch samples basically, and I'm going to include instructions in the pattern for how to make this swatch, so that if you wanted to get a feel for the construction and how this all looks together before actually starting on a whole item, where obviously you have to be working the upper back and front with it, you could just knit this funny little shaped swatchy shoulder sample thing here. I love that. It looks so nice. So for this one I used BC Gone Loch Lomond in the silver shade, which is from my Calm Down cardigan, so some leftovers of that, and then the cream was the Laland DK. So again, not the right gauge, it should be sport weight rather than DK, but you can get the idea of what the ridges, the tucks, sorry, look like in a contrast colour. That was the point there. So I'm going to knit a few more swatches just to kind of provide some inspiration, and I know that, again, like with the black top, the green, dark green, was also difficult to take pictures of and to show the detail, so I'm going to do a few swatches. That seems like a good way to demonstrate without having to actually knit all of the samples. So that's my next job, knitting wise. Make a few more of these, and I'll be writing up the pattern this week. Call for testers coming soon. Hopefully I'll think of a name, or something will magically occur to me in the next few hours. But yeah, I'm very happy with it, and I think it's going to be able to be completely transformed by the yarn and colour choice, which always feels like it kind of puts a bit more of the creativity back in the hands of the knitter to bring it to life in their way, that you're going to make something that has a completely different feel. So I'm very excited about that one over the next few months. I think this is the last project I'm going to share today, because others are quite early on in the process and don't really look like anything yet. But this is another one that my mum is knitting a different version of an existing pattern. Just realised I didn't share my movement sweater. I'll insert some pictures of the original version. So far I have a plain grey version, then a stripy cream and navy version, and now this version, which is in scrappy mohair. So the originals have folded hems, but that didn't really look right in mohair, so I just swapped it for a plain rib. My simple raglan sweatshirty kind of sweater, done in 2 strands of mohair. This is obviously just using scraps throughout, and I think it looks really cool. Just had the yoke divided to work the main body. My mum's done most of it, I've done bits and bobs. Just trying to be as random as possible, which is so difficult to actually not put too much thought into it, but then you kind of don't want it to look too all over the place, but you do want it to look mixed up and not like you've thought too hard, and really difficult to be random. Much easier to follow a set sequence, but really happy with how it's looking so far anyway. So hopefully over the next few weeks this one will be finished, and we'll again show a similar style, show a same pattern in a completely different style. My battery is flashing at me, so I should probably wrap it up there and go film some detail shots. But thank you very much for watching. I have another video planned in the next, which I'll try to film tomorrow maybe, about choosing the right size, how to choose a size when you are knitting garments for yourself, because there is a whole lot more to it than just what is your bust measurement, knit that size. That I've had lots of discussions with test knitters about, given it lots of thought in terms of how it varies for different pattern choices, different styles, so many different things. And I think I considered putting it in this video and then decided no, I'm going to film a whole separate video on that, so stay tuned for that. I'll also have, hopefully, a mini vlog. I'm going to Sweden next week for something slightly knitting related, but in a very unusual way. Not really knitting related, I can't really explain it in a way that makes sense. It's a really cool trip that I'm super excited about, and there is a slight knitting element to it. But hopefully I'll be able to vlog that, and I'll be in Kalmar, Sweden next week. And yeah, being an altogether busy bee with lots of knitting on the go. Gonna go knit some swatches now and hopefully sit out in the sun whilst it lasts. We have a heatwave week in September, as always, after a horrible August. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you're working on, and if you have any name suggestions for my currently nameless sweater. So see you soon!